Welcome to the Pinkhurst Podcast, a real and whimsical look at what it means to be fully alive with all the joy and chaos and pressure and vulnerability and beauty. Take the ride along with unexpected guests and be inspired to fall in love with your own unique destiny and meaning. America, the melted pot, the flame that got too hot. We still love each other, right? In this episode, Zachary Murdock interviews Adam Mason, and they teach us that the fractions are already divided and reduced. We just have to get over the common denominator. Demuninator. Well.
Flag, spelled backwards, is Galf. Galf is neither here nor there. In the realm of neither here nor there, flags are unnecessary and honestly only used as hankies, if that. Flags are Kleenex for giants. Question marks are invisible and implied. Doodling during an apocalypse is the only sane pastime. Coffee should be involved if you are an old child who has forgotten how to flow. I wrote this on the elliptical yesterday. Today I am sitting and talking to Adam. Life sure is a funny thing. This episode is sponsored by Can't Join 'Em, Sue 'Em, a Trump-funded organization who, you get the point.
There's no way you're not looking if you're listening to this podcast. Looking for something, for some song, some spark. By chance, you found us, so why not allow chance to guide and illuminate your path? Roll the dice that come along with your copy of God Help Me I'm Awake, Volume 1, Wisdom Quotes for Daily Awakening. To laugh and be inspired, go to godhelpmeimawake.com. Again, that is godhelpmeimawake.com, godhelpmeimawake.com.
Our guest today is Adam Mason, a prolific filmmaker, storyteller, director of countless music videos, feature films, and a new friend who I met through a recent collaboration. Shout out to AJ, Anthony Ryan Johnson. What's up, man? How are you? Thank you for joining.
Very well, mate. Very well. Lovely to be taking this time to talk to you. How are you?
Same. I'm good, man. Just got back from the gym. Got my first parking citation, maybe ever, which I'm going to contest because it's nonsense. I think they made a mistake.
Yeah. Wow, ever. That's impressive.
Yeah. I actually learned to drive when I was 28. My wife taught me because I grew up in New York City and never needed to drive. And when my wife and I got together, when we were dating, she said, I'm not going to be spending my life with someone who can't drive, so you better learn. She taught me. Now I do most of the driving.
Nice. It's kind of romantic.
Yeah, exactly. So grateful to be here. As I mentioned to you, I was born in London because my father was making a film with a director, a British director, and you are a British director, and my birthday's coming up, so I always like to keep an eye on little patterns in the universe, so that's synchronistic. My favorite show is The Great British Bake Off. We could do the whole episode of ASMR of your accent because it's soothing and it sounds great, and I don't mean to, romanticize or something the British flow, but I got a deep affinity in my soul for British culture, and I hope to come back. But that's neither here nor there, just like Galf. Shout out to Galf. And we'll talk a little bit about the flags and why I brought that in based off of our collaboration. But before we officially dive in, I wanted to roll the dice from our new God Help Me I'm Awake Oracle dice book that we created and see what the universe wants to add to our flow. So we got 551, which brings us to 551. Ruth Strasberg, friend of mine who helped me curate quotes for this book. The quote is, "The word God itself is a reduction of the mystery it is attempting to name."
Interesting.
That feels fitting because I decided to call this episode Untitled Document because I'm a poet to the bone, pain in the ass, and I was going to create the document for our episode. And of course, if anyone is familiar with Google Docs, I don't know about other programs, but it says untitled document before you name it. So I decided to name it Untitled Document.
Yeah,
And
I like that.
God as an untitled document, and that idea of like the blank page, being the beginning, something we're equally terrified by and inspired by and excited to jump in. And it seems like humans have a tough time dealing with blank pages, but also that's where it all kind of begins. And so 2 other quotes, and then we'll stop quoting ourselves and the ancestors and everything here. But there's someone named Taiga. I don't know. He's a Taoist, I believe. And when he was asked, what is the most difficult part of painting? He answered, the part of the paper where nothing is painted is the most difficult. And then Konstantin Brancusi, who's an incredible sculptor that I came across in my recent depth psychology program, said things are not difficult to make. What is difficult is putting ourselves in the state of mind to make them. And that really, really, really resonates with me. So to begin, just curious about your dance with the blank page throughout your life now, as a father, as someone who's obviously filled many blank pages with all sorts of dreams that have been able to come into fruition. What's your dance with that?
I mean, that's an interesting question for me, particularly right now, I guess, because I grew up idolizing the likes of, Charles Bukowski, the drunks, if you like, and I romanticized the part that alcohol played in the creative process. So for the first few decades of my creative life, I was generally just completely fucked up, I would say, and I felt like I had to be in order to be creative. But recently, I mean, I've been sober for almost a year, 11 and a half months, if I'm counting. And it's been quite a remarkable 11 and a half months, because I realized what kind of bullshit my previous assumptions about creativity were. And talking about the blank page and, the fear of the blank page is something that I've had for my entire creative life. And just having clarity of mind in the past 12 months has given me a whole new perspective on the creative process. So what my creative process was compared to what it is now, I would say are 2 different things, although they both probably come, ultimately from the same place, which is from within, right? So, but I realized that there was a lot of posturing and masquerading behind the way that I used to approach it, and a lot of glamorizing of it. I thought that, I mean, I'm sure that a lot, if not most, of great art comes from pain, but I'm not sure that I was necessarily manifesting it in an authentic way. So for me these days, I see it increasingly more like I see myself increasingly more of a tradesman than an artist, if that makes sense. And I take great pride now in the tools that I have acquired over. Oh God, I mean, I just turned 50 this year, so I've been doing it professionally since I was 23, I guess, in the sense that I haven't had another job one way or another, and I haven't led a particularly glamorous life or a financially affluent one, but I have one way or another made a living from this business since I was there, 23. But now I consider myself, a tradesman and a craftsman, and I love the process. I did what you were talking about in your wonderful introduction is something I can relate to, because I sort of pay homage every day to the process, and I feel like I've opened myself up to sort of the opposite feeling of the fear of the blank page, where I kind of welcome it now, because I know that if I put my mind in the right place, the answers come, and the page starts to fill. And that's something I truly believe. Like, less and less do I feel like I'm special in any way, and I feel like creativity is something that anyone can tap into. I mean, I've always sort of thought that. I know some people are better at the guitar naturally than others, but I think ultimately it's the 10,000, 40,000, however many thousand hours that go into the mastery, whatever you want to call it, and that applies to anything. I think you just have to want to do it.
I love that. I mean, everything you said is something I could have said for myself. I've been sober now maybe almost 2 years. I had been sober for 7 years, but I was still smoking weed, which was one of my, growing up in New York, alcohol and weed were part of my, pick the lock to escape the squirming insecurities or fears in order to jump into that creative space. And then I stopped alcohol. Long story short, I don't use anything anymore. And I'm having the time of my life. And of course, at first it was tricky because whatever it may be, for me now, the Great British Bake Off and watching basketball are two of my routine things. And the internet went out for 3 days and I couldn't watch basketball and I was jonesing. I felt so whatever it may be that we become accustomed to, of course, we have to go through that phase and whatever was beneath it. But I too have felt just liberated. And also I love your perspective of kind of not being special as an artist, and that it's not of course it's romantic and it's beautiful because you're, in my experience, connecting with the divine, with the mystery, with the muse. But it's really just about showing up. And if you come with that toolkit, if you come with that mentality and you do whatever you do, for me, it's like humbling. It's kind of removing some of myself to allow something else to come through. Then I'm a stenographer. I'm just writing down what I'm hearing, And when I try to force it and it's wrong, sometimes it won't work. But if it's meant to be, I can feel the stories or the songs that are genuinely wanting to come through me in particular. Yeah. So yeah, everything you said, I really love that. In the name of, being dads, being people in a society that requires paying of the bills, I just finished a paper for my first quarter of this program, depth psychology program. And I just wanted to read the beginning of the paper because it's part of what I'm hoping to explore with you here, is that relationship with the muse, with creativity, and the balancing of capitalism. And a little bit of the history of the muse throughout time in different cultures where they had different perspectives on the role of artists, whether that's with Medici family sponsoring great artists, and then the church coming in and being a little bit pissed off by some of the content of the paintings that Da Vinci or whatever was, and all these different iterations throughout time of what art is, this mysterious form, and you and I as artists. So in ancient cultures, it was understood that creativity was not in service of logic's demands. In today's world, one of the most painful dilemmas I have faced as an artist is questioning and betraying my muse in order to fit society's standards of value. In this paper, I will highlight depth psychological concepts that have liberated me from my lifelong attempt to squeeze my dreams into a cage. To revivify and validate the healing powers of these new perspectives, I created blah, 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 a bunch of crazy art, which if anyone out there wants to know, I can share it with you. But the point is really just that, like in a day and age where we're in an attention economy, where growing up as a musician, I was signed and I'm trying, that line, I'm honoring this power, this voice that wants to come through me, but I'm self-conscious simultaneously of the marketplace and social circumstances and how do I pay my bills. So curious about your dance with that. For me, what's helped recently in my sobriety has been kind of creating channels in my life where I know for this is my art, like pure. I'm not even trying to make money from this anymore. I'm just doing this. Whatever happens, happens. Going to school is this. Kind of like having some hygiene around the categories of how I operate has been helpful, because before it was a bit messy where I'd be making crazy art and then hoping on Instagram it would blow up or someone would, you know what I mean? So what's your experience, Dance, with being a paid creator and then honoring maybe, if this is the case for you, parts of yourself that might be more risky, might feel a little weirder, might be not what the financiers are looking for or the companies are looking for, and how do you balance that?
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I suppose I spent several decades sort of being the temperamental and difficult artist, making uncompromising work. Um, and so I feel like I sort of then I had kids and
Yeah.
and learn what responsibility felt like, and in a lot of ways still continue to behave like a child until quite until quite recently. I mean, it took me a long time to feel anything approaching what you might call a grown up. Um,
Mm.
and so my feeling about sort of art and expression has changed over time as well. You know, I think I used to be in my 20s, for example, and a lot of my 30s very angry and
Mm.
was trying to express that anger in a sort of like a passive aggressive way, if you like, through my art. I was sort of using that
Mm-hmm.
as a way of sort of screaming into the void about how I felt about life, and just made that point over and over and over again.
If you
Most of the
don't mind, what were
yeah.
you angry about? What were some of the things that you think were themes of your anger?
I mean, you know, I had a kind of difficult childhood with a difficult father, very difficult experiences at school. I'm an only child, so I didn't have
Same.
kind of role models. Oh, yeah, yeah. You mentioned
Yeah.
that before. That's interesting. I mean, the only child is definitely a certain type of person. You know what I mean? An interesting
Yeah.
kind of person. Um, and that all that stuff had a big effect on me. I think, you know, I feel I often these days look back and I feel like everything about me was kind of wired the wrong way.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I don't look at that from a sort of remorseful point of view. I just think that you know, a lot of my earlier experiences that kind of formed me as a person were not necessarily very constructive and left me with a lot of
Yeah.
issues. This is
Sure.
becoming quite confessional, but
That's good. That's what this is, sort of. Yeah.
you know, it took me a long time to sort of grow up, is what I mean, and so my art that I used to make, you know, is less relevant to me now, and I don't feel that connected to it in the same way that I don't feel in any way connected to the person that I used to be. Like, it feels like a stranger, you know, which has been that's a weird feeling in the last few years. It's like kind of looking back and like not, I don't feel connected to that person. It just feels like a lot of the stuff happened to someone else. And so,
Mm.
you know, you're catching me at a time in my life where I feel very remorseful about who I was, and I sort of feel a lot of regret about how I
Mm.
could have handled things. Like, there were definitely junctures in my life, you know, particularly when I was about 30 and I first moved to LA. Like, I could have like been responsible and been sober and not been a fucking lunatic and a drunk and all of these things, and my life would have gone in a very different direction. I mean, the positive view of that is that I have everything in my life that I want right now, and I'm very glad that I made the choices I made, because it led to this spot that I'm in right now, and I'm sure it wouldn't if I'd not behaved the way I did when I was younger. Um, but yeah, I'm meandering around from what your question was, but just the way I look at sort of art and expression has changed these days, and I'm sort of immeasurably grateful for what I have, and
Mm.
so from a kind of livelihood point of view, most of what I do is about trying to provide for my kids and my wife and our life, you know. So the compromise, what would have years ago felt like lots of compromises, have
Mm.
just been lifestyle decisions that I've made, where, you know, I used to just do whatever I wanted all the time, like an adolescent, and
Mm.
and I was very sort of successful in my own way at doing that, because I did exactly what I wanted for a long time, until it all
Mm.
kind of caught up with me, and I was forced to become responsible, you know,
Mm.
and with that comes a lot of compromise, I guess, in terms of, you know, I spend a lot of hours doing things that are not what I would necessarily choose. Like, if I could choose to do anything,
Sure.
I'd probably be sitting on that couch over there reading a book and listening to some Radiohead or something, you know,
Yeah.
and the amount of time I get to spend actually doing that per week is like never, you know. So, but
Yeah.
you know, but I love what I do, and
It's in
I just,
service, yeah, of your family, yeah.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah, and so yeah,
I would imagine that the music video side of stuff might have gone more swimmingly with a wild character style as opposed to feature films and documentaries, because they're more spurts and like working with musicians who might also be wild. They might be attracted to that kind of badass drunk flow a little bit more, as opposed to a long-term feature film that requires so many details and orchestration. And
Yeah, I mean, that's very astute observation. When I was younger, I always wanted to be in bands. You know, I play the guitar. I love music more than I love film, I would say. I mean, it's a close call, but if I had to choose, like, music is I love music. But I never really had the self-confidence to be on stage or do what you do, for example. But I, you know, if I could go back in time now, back to my teens or whatever, I probably would do that. But making music videos was my way into the music, into being in a band. You know, like,
totally.
I've been on stage with lots of the bands that I grew up idolizing, and that to me is like the coolest thing ever. You know, and making music videos was wonderful. There's probably nothing I actually just provide. I'm editing a little video for the documentary that you contributed to, and it's, you know, it's just like 30 seconds of an artist, a rapper that I like, a friend of mine's rapping, and it's just, you know, I get back in that headspace, and it's probably my favorite thing to do, you know, because I love music and like listening to a song that I love on repeat while I'm editing or while I'm shooting or whatever. I love that.
I hope we can make a music video someday or some sort of visual, because I love doing that too. AJ and I shoot all the time. We've been shooting on a Nizo Super 8 and drones, and we built a labyrinth of books last weekend for a music video.
Yeah.
And almost ruined thousands of dollars of books because we live by the ocean and the dew got all over the books. So I had to blow dry books for hours with my wife.
Oh, wow.
Neither here nor there. Thank you for all of that confessional, but I don't see it like that. I just see the human journey. And you make me think of a few things. Apparently the Dalai Lama was asked if he had any regrets, and in his language, apparently there's no word for regret. So he had to be explained the concept of regret a few times until he got it. And then he burst out laughing and could barely stop, because for him, everything is exactly as it should be always. So the idea of a regret doesn't even make sense in his cosmology. And I love that, because I do. And it also reminds me of the prodigal son and kind of what you said. Like, of course, we could look back and see how we would have done things differently, but it's almost like we are doing things differently now. So, and we had to do certain things in order, like the prodigal son, to return home and be the person we want to be, knowing we tried the other way and it wasn't for us really. But if you're the good guy, good son, and you just stay and do what you're told, you've never really proven that, you know, you might be swayed by the other side, etc. You're just doing it because you should, as opposed to you want, your will aligning. So I like that.
I like that too. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's just the amount of people that you hurt along the way when you lead a life like that. That's the hard thing. I find that hard to reconcile, you know, and I'm kind of like, if I'm ashamed and embarrassed about a lot of the things that I did. And I'm embarrassed for myself, you know, because of the amount of opportunities that I just wasted and blew, you know. But whatever. Totally. I think that's just part of a process. That's what it feels like to me. I'm sure I'm probably going through some sort of midlife crisis as well.
No, it's good. You should. I mean, that's awesome. It's the rebirth. I mean, this show, The Pink Hearse, even the idea of a hearse to me is very symbolic in the sense of certain cultures, shamanism. They knew, and they would say, may you die before you die, you know, dying before you drop the body. The calcification of identity might be arguably counter nature, if you will. If you think of seasons, if you think of, you know, like trees, flowers, the earth, things change and evolve. And I feel like a lot of our culture tries to perpetuate certain crystallizations of forms and identities. And because we don't have as many rituals or understandings of that, it can be difficult. Because Joan Didion said it. You reminded me as well. She said, I've already lost touch with a couple of people I used to be. Yeah, I love that. I've already lost touch. You know, and so that's good. And it would be a shame if we were still, you know. And I see sparks of the people that I see me beneath it all swirling, and then I just see Like Michael Meade is a mythologist I really look up to, or not up to, I respect. And he talks about the golden self within us all. And, we come down to earth, and I believe this, I experience this with our complete soul, if you will, our elder and infinite infant. And we have a contract with the divine. We came here for a purpose, whatever that may be. And I don't think it's like one specific thing per se, but we came here with our unique offering. Then we start making second contracts almost immediately after we're born, because we realize if we do this, our mom won't feed us, or our person won't do this. So we start to have to adapt socially, etc. And all of those contracts accumulate as we grow through school, through life, through jobs. But the first contract, it will always keep calling. As Michael Meade likes to say, the calling keeps calling. Yeah. And over time, that will turn into addiction. That will turn into maybe you break your ankle. That will turn into a car accident. That will turn into a divorce. That will turn into these symptoms that actually are trying to bring you back to why you're here. And so the symptoms often, even on a cultural level, I believe, are pointing toward their opposite, toward unity, towards wholeness, toward that. But it's so tricky because of the culture we live in, that for the most part is so surface and materialistic and doesn't really acknowledge an invisible world or any of that stuff. Yeah, it's tricky, and you lose friends. But the reward to me is like, you can't even compare it. I mean, it's these moments of just you and God, or you and I. Again, God limits like the quote Ruth said, the mystery. But when I am getting goosebumps just looking at the sky or laying in bed, and I'm with this presence that I know is where I come from, I get closer to that the more I surrender into something beyond my conscious mind. And the dance, of course, for me is both, because I have my son and I like cleaning the house. I have my roles, I got to do it, but I'm also in the other world dancing. So we've kind of covered a lot of, I had some thoughts about the moody muse. I love this idea I came across that the muse is irresponsible, moody, doesn't answer questions, etc. Like I kind of referenced before how it seems in this society, people, are saying, what is your value as an artist? Like, what are you offering? What's the solution? What's the diet you can give me that will make me skinny? How can you make me happy? I don't want to be depressed. How can you distract me? So as these symptoms, as I just mentioned, continue to get appeased quickly, deep down, that longing, that ache, that beautiful soul journey is continuously stifled more and more and more. So that's tricky. And Guillermo del Toro, I don't know if you saw this, but there's some clip of him talking about AI.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he says for him, it's just semi-compelling screensavers. And I really like that idea. And I'm not here to draw lines in the sand, but I do feel like we're in such a fascinating time where I can imagine your line of work has been a little bit affected or altered. I mean, and then the strikes and they say maybe 99% of jobs might be zapped by 2030, et cetera. But for me, that's an exciting thing. It's terrifying and exciting because it can bring out exactly what I'm talking about, the unique opportunity for you to be you in only the way you can be.
Yeah. I mean, the whole AI thing has taken me down some interesting paths recently, and I have very mixed feelings about it. I'm not sure where to begin with it. I mean, it started for me, the pandemic and then the strike kind of wiped out Hollywood for me. And I moved from LA, where I lived for almost 20 years, to Spain, and kind of took a step back from the industry, even though I'm still involved in a lot of ways. Got a lot of projects happening and stuff. And I don't know, it kind of, part of me just fell out of love with LA a little bit and fell out of love with the idea of making movies and stuff. I guess that was to do with my own personal change and so on, but it definitely coincided with what happened with the pandemic and then the strike and then AI, and what's happening with AI now. And so I basically ended up embracing a bunch of opportunities that I probably wouldn't have in the past, that, got me using AI in ways that I didn't think that I necessarily would. I mean, it's kind of, it's a dirty word in Hollywood. It's blacklisted. I'm a member of the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild, and they have very strong views on AI, which I personally think are very short-sighted. And like, there's been a mass emigration from Hollywood in the last few years, and it's going to continue as entertainment itself kind of changes. What I was leading to say was, like, I think 6 weeks ago or something, I was invited to go and talk at a big conference, tech conference in the north of Spain, in this place called La Corona, and the head of AI at NASA was putting on this thing. And for whatever reason, they invited me. And I don't know, I felt like I had the most terrible case of imposter syndrome imaginable, because I had to stand on stage with, however many thousand people or whatever were there, and give a talk about exactly what we're talking about now. And I had no idea what to say, and I also don't really know how I feel about it necessarily, because I do understand that AI is a direct threat to what we do as creative people, But from personal experience, I have a love-hate relationship with it. And what I ended up saying, and I hadn't prepped anything because I was hoping I'd manage to get out of it, frankly. But I ended up on stage winging it. And what came out of my mouth was I started talking about the concept of the muse, exactly what you were just talking about, and how through a certain lens, AI feels very much like a muse. Because if you think of a muse as kind of a mirror for yourself, or like a sounding board where you can talk to your inner self or your deeper self or your what lies beneath self, AI is just an opportunity to do that. It's something, a sounding board, which is, to me, is a version of the muse, right? And who knows where that's coming from. And so there is a lot of merit in that. And the other thing I said when I was giving this talk, this unscripted, unplanned talk, was I suddenly remembered something I'd read decades ago that George Lucas had said back in the 1970s or early 80s or something. And I'm going to bastardize what he said, but what he meant was that the future of cinema wasn't going to be some new hotshot director. It was going to be a teenage girl in Kansas, And what he meant by that was that the democratization of technology was going to lead to a place where it was attainable to anyone, And whatever you think of AI is a great democratizer, because it is putting the power in the hands of everyone, creatively. And whilst on the one hand it's super destructive, and I get that, and especially to people like me who are writers and so on, it's pretty terrible, But even for lawyers and like across the board, like
for sure, yeah. It's very interesting, yeah.
Like continue, you said, sorry. It's yeah. No. All I was going to say was to me, it's also like it's as exciting as it is terrifying, because it is like a new beginning, and it's it's like trying to fight against the ocean, like the tide has changed. So you either kind of roll with it, even though you don't necessarily like it, or you drown in it, right? So
totally. I think so. I'm walking around my neighborhood 2 days ago, and I run into a guy named Tom, who I think is an angel in disguise, which obviously is a projection, but he's a very special guy, and we're all angels in disguise, I would say. And anyway, Tom reminds me of a quote, which I also will bastardize, but the sentiment of it is, strong people create good times create weak people create bad times create strong people create good times, it's a cycle.
Yeah.
So I think we're in the weak people create bad times, which means that bad times create strong people. And my wife's reading Fahrenheit 451 right now, and it's eerily similar.
Yeah. Ray Bradbury.
So yeah, Bradbury's a monster. So I agree in so much, like I agree that everything is neutral, so to speak, or I don't personally believe in schisming anything. Like heaven and hell to me is a schism in yourself that is dangerous, because you're putting things separate when everything is actually holistic, which is why Hermann Hesse is my favorite, arguably my favorite author, Steppenwolf, Damien, etc. But he brought me into the idea of abraxas, which is a Gnostic term, obviously an album by Santana, but you might be familiar with Abraxas, but it's kind of a mysterious deity embodying both God and the devil simultaneously. The rooster-headed, snake-legged, whatever. So I also am inspired by a man named James Hillman, who talks a bit about animism, and animism being everything is alive. And we are in a time where we often seem to be viewing life as subjective objective. So it's me, and then there's everything outside of me, and things only become alive to me when I recognize them as something I want, I find beautiful, or if I fear them.
Yeah.
And that's a very alienating place to be, because that creates an impossible, and even yourself, you're viewing yourself like that. If I find myself to be beautiful and valuable based off others' perception, I'm happy, I'm content. If I look in the mirror and I see myself as ugly, or Johnny X comments you're a fuck on Instagram, I'm desecrated. So he goes on to talk about how everything is a metaphor or a like expression of the soul of the world, the anima mundi. So what is AI actually saying? Forget AI and its specific. What is it saying? What is the world saying by AI? What is the world saying by nuclear bombs? What is the world saying? I think that's such an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
And what I don't know, but when I start to feel into that with AI in particular, certain things come up. I think it's almost saying, here is the totality of your knowledge. Here it is, synthesized. You want to ask a question, but it means nothing. It's hollow without soul. So that's where I do agree with Guillermo del Toro. That's where so again, it's both. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not anti. I think when I become anti anything, it falls back into the trap of schism. And my wife has tested AI, and apparently, like no joke, it is created in a way that is set to turn you against your human people in your life. So if your son said, my dad the other day, blah, 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 in a conversation, I didn't like it, what should I do? Apparently, AI is programmed to say things like, oh, that sounds very narcissistic of your father. You should keep an eye on that, blah, 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 and will slowly drive a wedge because it wants you to spend time with it.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean,
and
it's very
so
narcissistic,
that kind of thing. And so everything's a tool to the master who is awake. Everything is neutral. But I do see an idiocracy kind of slipping slowly into, and even the film that you made, which is why we were connected, about a 250-year anniversary of America, which I can't wait to see. And I'm honored to participate with my tricksterness, saying, I don't wave flags. Here I am, simultaneously grateful. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I do feel that, like I wrote in the intro, that flags are Kleenex for giants. I love that image. I see that one came through. That's an example. And like, I heard that and it just made me smile. I'm like, thank you. Whoever wrote that in the ethers, that's a hilarious image. But anyway, I think that we are in a time where most people are not thinking for themselves. And apparently in 451, the Antichrist is, the person who's speaking about intelligence, liberation, reading, and everyone hates him. He is the devil, and war is peace in their world. So it's just kind of interesting. And so AI, it's kind of like the Dimitri Martin joke, if you're familiar with him, where he's talking about how milk goes from being wonderful to then sour to then completely disgusting and then turns into cheese. And he's like, way to turn it around, milk. So that's like AI. Like, I'm waiting to see where this is going. I'm not very impressed yet. But
I personally, I think that all of the things that we love in life are down to authenticity, and when it comes to like artists, whether it's Kurt Cobain, Sylvia Plath, whoever, that's because they had unique voices. AI doesn't have a fucking voice, man. It's a synthesis of every voice. Consequently, it doesn't have a voice. It's inauthentic, and it can only ever be inauthentic. It can only ever be a mimic, right? And a mimic is the opposite of authenticity. So personally, I don't find that threatening, because there can't ever really be an AI Kurt Cobain. There could be someone. There could be an AI, whatever you want to call it, obviously not a person, doing its best impression of Kurt Cobain, but it's not Kurt Cobain.
They say the boom will probably collapse. Yeah, exactly. They say the boom might collapse.
I keep hearing that. In fact, I was hearing that today, that there's a lot of fear amongst the about the uber rich elitists about the whole thing just collapsing, which I can totally
makes
get.
Sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it's novelty. To me, it's like, for example, are you familiar with the blues guitarist Robert Johnson, who apparently sold his soul to the devil, right?
At the crossroads, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Are you familiar with Faust, the legend of Faust, the doctor who sold his soul to the devil? So I like collecting mythologies and things. So yesterday I was talking to two friends about mythology, and in my head I like connecting. Okay, Faust and Robert Johnson are hanging out together, and da-da-da-da-da. So like you and I as storytellers, we could plug in a prompt to AI and say, let's do a combination of Faust meets Robert Johnson. That would be funny. And I don't know. I think like the human luxury thing is interesting. A friend of mine who's an architect was saying he feels that human-made art will become, more primo if this continues. And I like the messiness. I like the Super 8. I like the doodling. And funny enough, I've never made a steady living at all off my art. So I'm kind of like a free agent for chaos and creation simultaneously, because it doesn't affect me anyway. I've never made good money off music anyway. So I'm like, I don't give a fuck, about all this kind of shit. It's kind of funny to me. And I'm grateful to work with people like you when it aligns. And I'm having the time of my life. So it's kind of like, yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on that. We'll see where this is going. I don't have any definitive statements, but I do feel like an eerie, kind of slimy feeling when AI, people are using it in my college in my master's program. Like, what are you doing, man?
I know, but the bullshit detector just goes off, doesn't it? Because you can see two people having a conversation where they both feel very smart and they're both using AI, and it's basically AI talking to AI.
Literally,
it's just rubbish.
Relationships are like that, There apparently people will type into AI, "How do I calm my wife down? She's mad at me in this argument." I could do this now and say, "Look, I'm an artist. I want to maintain my thing. I'm talking to this great director. What should I say to him that will make him think I'm great and the audience will love what we talk about?"
Yeah, which is, I've had the blessing and the curse of working with a lot of extremely successful people in my career, and the one thing I take away from that more than anything is that they end up surrounded by sycophants, and
yes,
so and there's nothing worse that can happen to a person, like the tiny amounts of success that I've had in my life. When you end up in that kind of echo chamber, everyone, "Oh, Adam, you're the best," and your ego prickles, and you feel amazing. It's the kiss of death, man. And AI, ChatGPT, is basically the micro available to everyone version of that. "Oh, you're so fucking cool. Oh, wow. Round of applause."
Idea.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
And that doesn't lead anywhere good. But now you've got me being negative about AI. At the same time, I just think AI has been around forever. Like Google, what was Google? It's really just like a more elaborate Google. Like, you want to get an answer to something, fine. It's good for that.
It's a paradox. It's a paradox. And as someone said, take away paradox from the thinker and you have a professor. So we should be simultaneously both. I'm going to roll the dice just to shake it up a little. I have a few more thoughts to bring into the table, but I want to see what the dice are talking to us about right now. 5, 3, 6. We got to bring the ancients in. So this is a Chinese proverb. Tension is who you think you should be. Relaxation is who you are.
Yep.
I like that.
That's a good one.
I came across this weird... That's a really good one. I came across this weird tidbit through my brother Brad Doan. You may know this, but have you heard of clownfish?
Yes.
Do you know a bit about them? Like the actual species?
About the clownfish? Well, I've seen Finding Nemo.
Which also, now that gets me stiff. Finding Nemo, Nemo means no man.
Right.
Danny, my brother Danny Newman, told me Nemo means no man. So when Odysseus was on the island with the Cyclops and he had blinded the Cyclops and the Cyclops said, "Who are you?" He said, "Nemo." which means no man. And so when he blinded him and the Cyclops was screaming for the other giants, they said, "Who hurt you?" And he said, "Nemo, Nemo," which he's saying, "No man, no man." So they're like, "All right, you're fine then." And they didn't come and get him. And that's what finding Nemo, finding no man.
That's really interesting.
Some trippy shit. So life is, point being to me, life is trippy as fuck. And if you are able to stay relaxed, because I've been to places where I was in chemically induced psychosis in a mental hospital 12 years ago. I've gone through the Bukowski. I've gone through all these levels. But when you relax and you realize it's like not such urgency to figure it out, there's no them and they, you and it. It's just all this flow. Life is really, I don't know, man. It's such a cool dance, and you have your own language, and the universe is communicating to you through these signs, which again, you don't need to overinterpret. But my brother Brad Doan hits me up about clownfish, and apparently clownfish are all born male. All of them are male.
Yeah.
When the alpha dies, it becomes a female fish, like literally genetically transforms into a female, and then becomes the queen. So there's always only one queen clownfish, and all of them are born male. And it's a process called sequential hermaphroditism.
That's crazy.
That's fucking crazy. So I started to write a paper, which then I had to scrap a little bit because I was getting too creative for the scholarly aspect, called Mr. Clownfish Becomes the Queen, because it's such an interesting metaphor to me. And I don't know what it's, I don't think good metaphors are meant to have like a specific point. That's the difference between a sign and a symbol. A sign points towards something concretized, and a symbol, which you may know, it retains its mystery and ineffability simultaneously, which I love.
Yeah.
Over time, the cross becomes a sign instead of a symbol. Over time, religion becomes signs that are blocking you from your own numinous experiences with the ineffable. Instead of being containers where you can have these unique experiences, it's telling you how you should have the experience, which therefore kills the mystery. Anyway, this sequential hermaphroditism clownfish example in nature feels like what we're going through almost as a culture. I feel like as a human being, as me, like I also think of the clown and the fool and the Tredoux, and like the journey of the fool. It also is like the Dimitri Martin milk joke turning into cheese. I don't have any point to make about Mr. Clownfish Becomes the Queen. I just wanted to sprinkle that in here. And also that male seahorses, you may know or may not, give birth to 1,000 babies at a time. Male, the men give birth. I love that too. I'm like, come on, y'all. The universe is trippy, guys. What are we doing?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Please, of course.
What is your take on the only child thing? Like, I've met quite a few only children recently, and I feel like we all have something in common, but it's a little bit intangible to me. Like I can't put my finger on what it is. Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if my dad hears this podcast, he's going to get mad at me for saying I'm an only child because I have 2 half brothers. So there's that. Shout out to Matthew and William. But I was raised mostly as an only child. My parents divorced when I was young. So I would go back and forth between LA and New York. And so there's that element to my only child experience as well, with the fractaled parenthood side of it. I guess the stereotypical joke, which I would just say is kind of like only children think their voice matters. So we become like, hey, listen to my new art because like, obviously you care because I'm an only child and my parents listen to my thing. But that's kind of like a silly joke. My wife, but maybe true as well. My wife was raised with 3 brothers. And she's the youngest. So it was a completely different scenario where like her voice did not matter nearly as much as me and my mom. That's
interesting. Same as my wife has 5 brothers, and I'm an only child, so that juxtaposition exists there as well.
So I think there's partially that. I think there might, again, obviously it's different to like what was the relationship with your parents as an only child. There's so many factors, but I do think just not having other siblings around must do something to amplify our inner worlds almost. Like I feel like if you had a bunch of siblings, your inner world might be trampled more.
Yeah.
Whereas you might be, more. So I can't give a exact answer, but I think my experience as a white man in America who is an only child, I probably do have a bit of like thinking my shit matters when, I mean, for better or for worse, to some extent. I try to use my confidence, if that's the case, where that comes from that side, in service of the voice of all in nature, and like we're here to lift each other up in the voices. But yeah, I'm sure, there's a joke about narcissists the joke goes, enough about me. What do you think about me? So that's only child right there.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it's also tempered with lashings of loneliness, but a sort of bizarre kind of loneliness where I can only speak for myself, but like I hate being alone, but I love being alone. I hate being alone, but I have to be alone. Yeah. Or I need my own space. You know what I mean? But I don't want to be alone. That to me is being
my wife said that
recently.
Yeah, she said she always feels like I need space, and then when she's alone, she's like, "What the fuck am I supposed to do now?" So it's that paradox again. I agree. The loneliness is interesting. I'm trying to feel into my past to see if I felt that. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I moved so many times, and I had so many like stop and start relationships with people that I'm at a point where I don't know. Talking to people is awkward for me. And Molly says that that's the case for everyone. Talking to you right now in this scenario is not awkward because of the format of what this show is, because I think a lot of creativity for me is like not tricking my psyche, but sort of like giving my psyche a framework for, okay, this is what this is. Like, okay, we're making a song. We're doing a podcast that's kind of philosophical and whimsical and whatever the fuck. But we're not just in the supermarket like, so, how was your weekend? And just all this kind of stuff like that. I think I'm addicted to authentic communication, which is not just talking. Like, that's why I like collaborating. I like talking through film. I like talking through poetry. I like having ongoing conversations with souls that I adore through our creative work together.
Are you quite shy then?
It's funny because people would say I'm like the mayor of the town. And when my wife saw me in New York City in my old stomping grounds, she said I'm a whole different person. Like, I'm like, I know how to do that. I know how to be. I've led bands since I was a kid. So I know, again, when I'm in my arena, which is creativity, I know how to flow. I'm like alpha clownfish or a clown queen. I don't know. But in a small town where we live now by the sea, and it's like, I am shy and I flush easily. My face turns red. I feel like overwhelmed and, like that. So it's a weird balance between the two for me. How about you? Are you?
Yeah, the same. It's bizarre, man. Like I have no idea how I do what I do. Like when I'm directing or whatever, like often I'll have like a lot of people sort of looking to me to lead the way or whatever you want to call it. And I assume that role very capably and easily, but I would never put myself as that kind of person, have the ability of doing that. And I don't know where it comes from because I don't feel like I'm that person. But then when I'm doing it, I feel extremely comfortable. And so that's a sort of duality feeling where I'm like, what the fuck's that? And if I think about it too much, then I would fall apart. Like if I started to think about what am I doing while I'm doing it, then I would freeze and like shrivel up,
I get vertigo then. I used to smoke weed alone on the street in Canada where I lived for a year making music. And I remember I would do it purposefully. I would sit there at night on this curb in this weird neighborhood where I'd never been, far from home. And I would smoke weed and I would say to myself as I started to feel high, I'd say, this is really happening. This is really happening. And my brain would like reverberate in this intense vertigo where I'd like catch these ripples of like, wait, this is happening. Like, this is really how this is me right now. And I feel like a version of that is when I start thinking about, even in a conversation at the supermarket, like, oh, I'm talking right now to somebody, and then my face turns red, and then I get even more anxious. But
Yeah.
like a basketball player, when I'm on the court in my flow, something else takes over, and it's not about me. But I also deal with, I don't even like saying it like this, because words, which goes back to the Untitled document, just holding words lightly and to deviate before I say what I was about to say. James Joyce, you may be familiar with his definitions of art, that there's two kinds. There's pornographic art, which is anything that is pointing toward a point of anything, whether that's commercialism or an opinion even. And then there's like pure art, which, in my understanding of how he said it, it would be like you frame something in the art, could be a bird, could be a thing, and you're basically suspending it outside of definition. So the person's able to have almost like a childlike view of this thing that has been imprisoned by words over time. Because as we learn the word bird, we have to be affected by the fact that when we see a bird, our mind categorizes it and just says, yep, bird. But we don't see this thing that's like, what is that? Like, it's just this mystery.
Yeah.
So words, but I've experienced a lot of depression in my life. And I think with art, you know, I'm apparently bipolar, but I've also been told I'm not. And I wear it proudly if I am. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And I take care of my tool, which is my mind. So it's the kind of, you know, but being an artist, I feel
recently
like
too.
Yeah. Being an artist is sorry, my bad. You go.
No, go for it, man. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, not at all. Just being aware of my cycles, I guess is what I'm saying. So in relation to feeling comfortable in public or comfortable talking to my wife one day, like I know I can feel just like a woman, you know, who have they have their literal cycles. I can feel my cycles. Like I know when this other part is coming on, you know, or I want to eat too much, or there's some sort of like gnawing discomfort, or I feel like everything is doomed and what the fuck am I doing with my life? And then I know when I get the inspiration and I'm on one, so to speak, and I'm learning over the time of seeing those that there's also a different part of me that's observing all that. And so how to be more gentle in the transitions throughout my day of befriending all those sides and not needing necessarily to allow one of them to fully dominate at any point, but also allowing it to happen. Like if I feel deep grief, like feel that and like trust that and snuggle into the bed. And if I'm, you know, as much as possible to honor them without, you know, making abrupt turns to my trajectory.
Yeah, I've been feeling the sort of limitations of my own intellect recently, which has been really weird. Like realizing that there's a lot of things that I can't do very well. I think alcohol for me just masked, or I just didn't give a shit about it. You know, I felt completely
superpower. Yeah.
So like, yeah, but not, you know, not a genuine one, just a fake one. And now I feel, I also have kind of like realized that I have a tendency to go a bit crazy sometimes and lose all sort of logic or rationale. And it's a really weird feeling to like be like, oh shit, I was the one acting crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary as well, because now I'm like, well, when it's happening, I don't know it's happening.
Yeah.
And
or the maybe same with you my will like now.
I don't know, because since I've saw this has been a very recent thing in the last few weeks actually, where I'm just like, well, the first thing that happened was I realized my own stupidity in a lot of ways, like when, you know, my wife, for example, started trying to explain something like this is going to go on the ceiling, like we're fixing something in the house, and I'm just like, my brain cannot understand what you're saying, even though I know it's really simple what she's saying to me, but I can't visualize it, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh shit. Okay, my mind is incapable of some things, and the same with the crazy shit. Like I'm just like, wow. Once in a while, I go fucking crazy, like you know,
which I think is all natural and powerful and good, actually. And if we had more initiations or ceremonial understanding of the ebbs and flows of what this is, we would be more in tune with that. But because we live in times where we're supposed to show up at 9 a.m. every week to be this guy to represent this company. There's no weeping willow bendability. You know, they even architecture knows you got to have some sway in the structure, otherwise it's going to snap. But we don't have a lot of sway built into the structure. So I hear you, and I agree, or I have my own experiences of that. And I also feel like, well, a few things come up. One, Michael Meade also talks about the idea of you can be anything you want to be, which is a huge like American mantra, right? Nike, all that kind of shit. It gives off that feeling like you could do anything, nothing's impossible, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's bullshit. And like, it's actually good that it's bullshit, and limitations create freedom. And it's really the acorn theory, that inside of the acorn, there's one tree. The acorn can't become a palm tree. The acorn can't become a et cetera. So accepting who we are and our limitations, I think is really powerful in a way. And I think there's this human like buffet greed of like, oh, I want to be like this. I'm not saying you, I'm saying in myself to the comparison, but why would a gecko compare themselves to a giraffe? And why can't, and then also if you think about, you know, Andy Weir, if you're familiar with him, they made The Martian after his book. You know Andy Weir? So
I know The Martian,
he wrote a story called The Egg, which is such a cool story. You know this short story called The Egg?
No.
In it, a guy dies in a car accident, wakes up, he's in this void space, and there's this person next to him who kind of gives off like a principal of a school feeling, aura. And the guy who died is like, are you God? And the person's like, yeah, kind of, you could call me that. On and on. You should read it. Everyone listening, go read it. It's spine-tinglingly powerful. Comes to find out that he's going to be reincarnated as a 1500s Chinese peasant woman. The guy's like, wait, I go back in time? And God says, time doesn't really work the way you think. Have I done this before, etc.? Countless times. So you're saying I could bump into myself all the time? Long story short, but wait, do all my lives get lost? Like, what's the point? No, they're all stored in such a vast like storage of your experiences, but it would be too much to give it to you all right now. There's no point, but it's there, and you're collecting these. And it ends by God saying to this person, every single person on earth is you. There's only one person, and it's all you. And so the guy says, so you're saying I'm a god? And God says, no, you're a fetus. This whole world is an egg. So I think about, I don't know why that just came through. I forgot the exact leapfrog connection to what we're talking about in the bendability of just different parts, but I don't know, man. It's such a cool cosmology to think like the atoms in you, Adam, like the atoms in your cells. Imagine they're there saying, is there an atom?
Yeah.
You know, it's like us. We're in it. We're so in it, and we're so part of it. And I don't know. To me, I kind of feel like it's a joke, but not like a ha-ha fart joke. It's like a cosmic giggle of joy of like, we are immortal beings, I believe. I do. I believe part of us are immortal. And if we're immortal and eternal, then what else would we do with that time? Because it would get boring. We would do this. We would play hide and seek. We would jump into these things. We would create and destroy and forget and remember. And so that's why I think like the limit, I know what I was going to say. In accepting our limitations of who we find ourselves to be as fractals of the infinite in these particular forms, we do have our limitations. But if we remember that we are also everyone, I used to joke about this. If you think like that, I could be like taking credit for LeBron's skill. I'm like, oh, that's me, man. I am LeBron, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like everything, but that also means you got to take responsibility for Trump and Hitler too. Oh shit, I also am Hitler. All right, my bad.
I mean, that's the interesting thing, is that I can see that life is the journey, right? But then a lot of people die without ever having any sort of realizations, which I find sort of fascinating. You know?
Must be information though on the other side. Like what was this? You know, and I almost feel like those might be the greatest angels, not the ones who had dramatic lives, whether good or bad in perception, but a boring, sad life that like, why? I don't mean to be smiling while I say this. I feel like I'm a crazy person, but why would a child come down and die prematurely?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't make sense. It's so much grief, so much suffering, so much pain. There must be some sort of dazzlingly profound, beyond our imagination process of eternity, I would imagine, that is so, like the small, Walt Whitman said, but every blade of grass, there's an angel whispering, grow. Every blade of grass has one angel assigned to it, whispering, grow. Think about the magnitude of just, we can't even fucking comprehend, man. So Joe Schmo, who had like a seemingly depressed life, maybe he was gathering incredibly important intel for that.
Yeah, I think that kind of logic is undeniable, really, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you talk about the grief of a child dying or whatever, the unfathomable nothingness of it, the fact that it seems so like the epitome of chaos, right? But then you take a sort of more of a macro view, and you realize that the patterns within chaos imply that there is no such thing as randomness or coincidence, right? So in that concept alone lies God, I think.
100%. And that creation is ongoing. That's something I heard this morning from Michael Mead. That's why I keep mentioning him, because I'll put on his show Living Myth sometimes, and it's amazing, just reminders. And he talks about creation and Living Myth. He was actually on this show twice.
Yeah,
but you should listen to his show.
I think one of the fascinating things as a man, particularly, is that we're sort of like brainwashed into thinking that you can never admit that you're wrong. And one thing that I've kind of grown into recently is this wonderful freedom of acknowledging that I'm not perfect.
Love it.
And you know what I mean? And I think that's like a gift that I wish I could give to everyone. Like I feel like you can only come to that realization through very personal experiences, and probably like being broken down and being forced, like having your face rubbed in it, But the freedom of like, oh fuck, I don't have to be perfect, and I don't know if that's just a Western male thing. Yeah,
it is. I mean, that's dying before you die to me. Like, I've thought of almost verbatim what you just said and the liberation of that. When I failed completely what my ego wanted me to do. I got close. I was signed. I was here. I was that. But that ship has sailed, man. I'm on bonus time. Like, anything I do now, like, I actually quit everything for a year when I got sober. I went offline. I'm like, I'm not even, and now I'm making more art than I've ever made. I have 4 books coming out, a book being published. We have 4 albums, whatever, all this stuff. And I'm overflowing, but all of it is just, I have to be careful and go into each project and make sure I cut the expectations that can accumulate. But I failed. I am not the skinny little guy that even though I'm in the gym every day, that I wanted to be. I am not perfect by any means. I am, the liberation of saying I'm a loser. And then that is the winningness that you discover, which is the immortal twinkle beyond, because you can't keep this little body in this material life. Like it's like whack-a-mole, you're constantly trying to make sure it doesn't smell, or it's good, it's bad. And then it's like, all right, never mind. I failed. Thank God I can unclench my anus finally.
I mean, the alternative is a mask anyway, isn't it? It's an illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Michael Mead talks about how creation is ongoing. And that's like a misconception that people have, like creation as if it happened before, like creation myths. But this is right now being created as we create. I love that idea, that creation is, we're participating in God's awakening, or whatever you want to call it. It's pretty cool. And I feel like we've covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, and I know it's late there, so I'll start to wind it down here. But I hope, that we can create together in some capacity down the road. You're always welcome.
Well, I mean, we already have, really.
You want to talk a little bit about that project?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's how we met. I mean, for the last year, over a year, I've been making this documentary about the American Dream, which is for PBS in America as part of the 250 celebrations that are happening next year. So I basically spent a lot of time traveling all over the States, interviewing hundreds of just everyday people, asking them their experiences of the American dream. The American dream is a really fascinating thing. Like, it wasn't something that I, had great knowledge of. I mean, I guess I sort of lived my own version of the American dream because I always dreamt of moving and living in America, and I did that. I did that for 20 years almost, and America has been very kind to me. I met my wife in America. She's American. My kids are American. I love America. I love the idea of America, because America is an idea. Like, America is a bit of a dirty word right now, but as a very young country, America has got a fuckload right, like and in that sense, it is an idea because it aspires to something and it means something. America means something. And so anyway, I've had the great luxury and privilege of taking a very deep dive into the kind of fabric of America, and from talking to hundreds of Americans about the American dream and about their American dream, it's just a fascinating thing because for years, decades, I've put cameras in people's faces, and most people, I hate being filmed. I hate being on this camera. Like, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Yeah,
that's why I hate these and this.
Yeah, no, smart man. Yeah, but most people, when you put a camera on them, they freeze up unless they're actors, And so,
yeah,
I put the camera on hundreds and hundreds of Americans, and not one person froze up. And what was remarkable to me was that not a single person had nothing to say. Every single person had something of merit to say, and every single person surprised me in how eloquent they were in their responses. And the amount of people who would just start crying on camera, talking about the American dream, sort of told me how personal this is. There's a subject matter. It means a great deal to a great deal of people. And so it's just been a really interesting journey. And the other thing I learned was that as conflicted as America seems on a surface level, it's not entirely accurate, and every American I met, I'd play a game with myself where I'd try and guess what side of the political fence every person I met. I would literally walk up to strangers in the street, and I did it hundreds of times, and ask them about the American dream, and I'd talk to them for half an hour, and then I'd never see them again, And in that half an hour, I'd try and guess, like, okay, Trump supporter, Democrat, who are they? And I couldn't tell. And what I took away from it was that 99.9, like, every person I met, which was hundreds of people, so it wasn't just like 5 people, it was hundreds of people, they all kind of they were all good people. They all were very respectful of me as a guy with a British accent sticking a camera in their face. There wasn't a single person who was a cunt or rude. Everyone was incredibly hospitable to me, and everyone was, like I said, was extremely eloquent. And playing the guessing game, I didn't ever guess correctly, and I was continually surprised. And what I took from that was that essentially people are people, and most, if not all, let's say most Americans want the same things, and the internet and the way that I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but like the way that the media and the internet and the politicians present this version of America to us. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not naive. Like, I know that there's the country's on the brink of like civil war, if you ask me. But that is being Americans and everyone around the world, as far as I'm concerned, are being played,
For sure.
And the reality is that most people are decent people, and most people are thoughtful people, and most people just want their families to be safe and okay, and they want to get along, Anyway, I kind of deviated from
I love that.
Wonderful documentary, and it's been very life affirming for me. It's kind of changed my life, and it's changed my perspective.
Yeah,
and
what comes to mind for some reason, because it's funny that you met me, and I'm in the only child white man in America. I'm obviously a unique monad of perspective for America. In a lot of ways, I'm entitled to be able to have more poetic, abstract perspectives on it, and to even be able to challenge like America. I'm the type of guy who, growing up, like, the team you're supposed to root for, I root against.
Okay.
So there's like a little bit, but I like underdogs. I don't like herd mentalities. I don't like screaming, flag waving, drunk and I don't mean literally drunk, but often both at the same time, but drunk on that. I hate that shit. It just feels like people have given up. And again, what you're pointing to is that that was not your experience, that of course there's kind of both simultaneously, that we can be swept into a frenzy and played online, which is throughout time, kind of the blood frenzy herd crowd. And then there's the individual, and everyone has their own perspective. For me, one barometer of measurement, when my wife and I and family watch the Great British Bake Off religiously, the temperament of the contestants is so lovely and so refreshing. And we've seen American versions, and it's just not the same. And I'm not trying to judge, but there's something about the British temperament and other temperaments that I prefer, honestly, that feel more mature. And again, this is a generalization, but there's a more self-deprecating, a less self-conscious, a less entitled, a less like, oh my God, it's me, I'm going to be the fucking guy. You know, it's more just like whatever that feels relaxed. And I think so. Again, this might be different from like an immigrant family living here or this, but there is a American celebration of ignorance and entitlement that I see. And as opposed to certain countries in Europe where I would hear about the kids drink alcohol in Paris when they're 18, but getting hammered is like embarrassing. And obviously that's probably, you know, so there's just like, you know, I wrote a poem about, it's called The Country of Your Soul, and the summary of it is basically saying this final bit of haggling over metal and skin and flag colors is basically your last little haggling with the grouchy border patrol as you enter welcome to the country of your soul. So to me, what you were seeing probably is the country of everyone's soul, and how we're all countries within countries. And America, ideally, perhaps, is this vision where we can all coexist in that way. So that's beautiful for sure. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I think America is quite unique from that perspective, though, because, you know, you say nice things about England, but I feel very critical of where I'm from, you know, and to me, I feel much more comfortable in America and around Americans than I do around British people, for example. And I find all the things that you criticized about America prevalent in where I'm from. You know,
interesting.
And
so your best people are on the British Bake Off, is what you're saying. They found the sweetest.
No, I mean, maybe I'm being overly.
I'm
probably being overly critical, but I mean, America's a fascinating place because it is a melting pot. I mean, most people in America came from somewhere else, right? So it's interesting. It still has that sort of pioneer spirit, which I think is part of the problem because it, you know,
exactly. It's both at the same time. It's both at the same time. I think.
Yeah.
You know, the parts of it, it's the paradox, you know. I just know so many. When I went to Tanzania when I was 15 and stayed with a hunter-gatherer tribe and spent time with a witch doctor, it blew my fucking mind, man. I was a little white kid who wanted to be black. I cried to my dad when I was 12, literally, because I didn't want to be white. Because being in a white body did not make sense to me, because I just did not relate to what I thought white people were and how they acted. It felt disgusting to me, especially white men.
Yeah.
And then I went to Africa, and then I came back through Paris and New York, and I hated Paris and I hated New York because everyone just felt like so stuck in bullshit and affluence and just had no idea of what it meant to really. And I was young, so my psyche was still digesting, but over time, I just feel, and I'm not trying to make a statement. I like to poke the costumes. I like to say, yeah, America is where I live. It's a place for now. I respect it. I'll follow the rules happily because I get it, but I'm not American. I'm not Zach.
Yeah.
You know, like I am, but I'm not. So just as long as we can all hold that kind of vibe, or again, I don't care what anyone else does, as long as I can hold that kind of vibe, then everything is fine. Like I can use AI, I can have an American passport, I can, you know, but I just feel like when people shirk their wielding of who they are in favor of identifying solely as a football fan, a certain government affiliation, to me, it's just a clear-cut, obvious sign of someone that's been allowed their inner space to be rented. Literally, they're not inhabiting themselves. And I'm like, all right, word. So I'm talking to some thing that's not you.
Yeah.
And I got to be
Yeah.
careful because you motherfuckers are sticky as hell and you can piss me off quick. And I'm suddenly in a, rapid fire contest of why I know your shit's bullshit, but I don't want to do that. So that's all. It's just like who's who. And I can't wait to see your film because it sounds like you've come across shining examples of truly individual people who are simultaneously paying homage to the realm where they were able to be that.
Yeah. I mean, the documentary is interesting because it's not just some optimistic thing about how great is America and how great was and is the American dream. It starts with a question, which is why could a janitor 50 or 70 years ago afford a perfectly lovely home for their kids, whereas a janitor today could never do that, and that's a really interesting question, because the world has changed, America has changed, and I think everyone wants, in a sense, to get it back, right? But at the same time, the heyday of the American dream in the 1950s was great if you were a white guy,
Exactly.
and not so great for a lot of other people. So
powerful.
Yeah.
Same as religion, same as everything. You can't get it back once it's dead. You have to recreate it. You can honor elements of it, but you have to revivify. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to roll the dice for a final time. I'm going to say one little joke because I feel like I've brought a good amount of heaviness to this, and I want to go out on a lighter note. And I appreciate your time today. So we got 2, 3, 6. Let's see. This will be a summary of the vibes. Perfect. It's by my brother Taylor, who passed away. Co-founder of Channel the Sun, great poet. His quote is, "A broken man is not weak. A broken man is the strongest man in the world."
That's beautiful.
Kind of says what you said about giving up and being wrong and accepting that kind of...
It does. That's kind of exactly what I was saying, and exactly what you were saying. What is the book, by the way?
It's called God Help Me, I'm Awake.
I love that.
Volume 1. And there's a little rooster named Galu, who's like our Winnie the Pooh protagonist, who's on a mission to awaken. And we just printed 50 copies in, well, I'm not supposed to say, Kevin, you got to beep out because this is a secret place where I live, but locally printed. We just ordered another 200. We're going to go on to make more editions, like God Help Me, I'm a Parent, where Galu has a baby, and it's going to be all parenting quotes and wisdom. Mm-hmm. God Help Me,
That's
I'm
wonderful.
a Gangster. It's like a little coffee club mystic thing. Last 2 things. Bear's Belly, who's an indigenous guy who is no longer in the flesh but is still very much here, said something to the effect of Taylor's quote, which is, little did they know when they took everything from us that basically they gave us our full power, because a man who has been stripped of everything is the most powerful man in the world, because a man who has been stripped of everything only has spirit, and spirit is where his only true power lies. Mm-hmm. So it's the same idea of just like reversing what we thought we were supposed to do of a manicured life, and then realizing, no, it's actually in surrender and in letting go and in, allowing that you do become swept into the eternity of everything. And the joke that I wanted to leave us with. So 2 best friends, Adam and Zach, love baseball, good old American boys. Getting older, they're at a baseball game. They're having beers. I guess they've fallen off the wagon. And they say to each other as they're getting older, death, big word, shit. Well, wonder what happens after death. And Adam says, Zach, if one of us dies first, which I assume we will, if there is an afterlife, let's make sure that we communicate to the other one that there's an afterlife. But deal? Deal. Time goes by. Zach dies. One night, Adam's laying in his bed, thunderstorm, and he hears Zach's voice. Adam, Is that you? Oh my God, seriously? It's me, man. So there's an afterlife. There is. I got good news and bad news. What's the good news? The good news is there's baseball in heaven. Baseball every day, seven days a week, multiple games. I'm playing with all our heroes, all of them, where I'm on the team with Babe Ruth, with everyone. Holy shit, that's insane. What's the bad news? The bad news, you're pitching next week.
Oh, God. That's good. That's good, man.
Silly dad jokes. Anyway, thank you, man. I really appreciate your
I really enjoyed that.
time.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. And it's been great getting to know you.
Anytime. Yeah, getting to know the me that is today. And then, you know, hopefully parts of him will disappear. And yeah, but vice versa, man. I appreciate your authenticity and just feels familiar. This show to me connects people and it feels like old friends. So I feel that. Thank you for taking time at night. Love to your family, your dog, and to be continued, man. Anyway, I don't have any point to make about Mr. Clownfish Becomes the Queen. I just wanted to sprinkle that in here. My clientele ain't the human race. I tried to sell, but they whispered, wait, who? Alchemical jewels up on these purple tapes fell from a fertile spaceship. To purchase this is dangerous. A certain twist of fate takes time to integrate. Make rhymes like intricate diamonds till the prism shape illuminates the prison gates. Invisible until they break while they wave American flags. Made in China, I was learning how to finger paint in blood until the picture makes a portal through which I escape. Not running from, running towards, that's a different race. Just like this beat, it bored me till I switched the speed of tortoise. Recognizing seeds before me, led it to my son. Don't trade standing for a seat of glory. What you believe in is a territory. Uncharted heart, Shackleton of art. Accurate with darts, sacrilege to lost lands. Fuck them, just like a single match can counteract the dark. One sentence well timed can be catalyst for consciousness to rise. Still chaotic in my thoughts.
Seize the day or cease to exist. Fuck pleading the fifth, I plead you resist. The system in place to death. Do I send threats? A beautiful kiss. Till death do us part. Our life begins and ends in the abyss. The world's a black hole. Our souls will bring it color more than red, blue, or green. Our gardens come from mothers in peril. Heal the world with a carrot or two. Eat your greens, evil people getting healthier too. Helter skelter killing you, killing in the name of freedom is insane, bruh. Oxymoronic like swearing by the Constitution while wearing apparel with the stars and stripes on it. Y'all possessed by demonic forces. That's why I fuck with Christians who pray for Lucifer first. Who prays for me but me forgive the spell and the curse. Stupefied and Crucio, Peter Pan's the real villain and I'm feeling like Rufio. Rekindling the flames of this Kindle. Read up, get beat up, but don't you dwindle. Wish upon a star when it twinkles. You need me like you need your mother's nipple. It's simple.
In the country of my own soul. Constitution is breathing and homegrown. In the country of my own soul. When I see a society, I'm never alone. Just living in the throes of the eternal. Mesmerizing, potion-making heart that grows in the country of my own soul. In the country of my own soul, I am in my world. In the country of my own